So I guess the mother, well, yeah, money, but I mean, I guess
well,
the mother.
I would imagine you have a choice of not breastfeeding if you were under any medication. You know,
yeah,
but
I mean, but
that's not the best thing for your child, because then the immune system can be compromised, because there's all kinds of things that go on with breastfeeding. It's I mean, yeah, it's in Atlanta. I remember reading an article. This is years ago. Effexor babies. There are on-call pulmonary teams for Effexor babies. Women are put on this antidepressant Effexor, and not even told that their child could die of a pulmonary event at birth.
That's crazy.
It is. It's.
So they're put on the drugs when they're pregnant?
Look, and then Obamacare is just going to force all of these medicine ideas on down our throats. They're already doing it now. Look at Jacina. The medical community, also are kind of wrapped up into this child trafficking thing, or they have the idea that their opinion supersedes the parent's opinion. And I had somebody tell me from Massachusetts that herself, and basically she said that no, that's the way it goes. We defer to the medical community when it comes to children and psych. And I said, well, is that in the law? And she said, oh no, it's the law. And I said, no, the state legislature writes the law, not doctors. So if you could point to me where it's said in the law, I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Well, I'll tell you where it says it in the law. Doctors are immune from prosecution. If you are immune from prosecution, if no one can win against you, then you have unchecked power.
Why are they immune from prosecution?
Yeah.
That's because our court system does that. Well,
wait a minute.
I think it was last year in New Hampshire, there was a landmark case where they decided that people can't sue for adverse events on drugs. Can you imagine that?
Oh, are you serious?
2 years ago, North Carolina, actually this is one shining moment from North Carolina, which has really gone down the tubes, but I think it's 2 years ago, the Attorney General stepped up to stop some legislation that was proposed in North Carolina that was going to create complete immunity for pharmaceutical companies. And the Attorney General stepped up and he said, North Carolina consumers deserve the same protections as 48 other states. I don't exactly know what he meant. And then he said Michigan is in its own universe. So I don't really know what that means, but that was stopped. But yeah, we, at the Law Project for Psychiatric Rights, every day I probably talk to 20 people who want to sue, and I have to tell them the truth. The chances of your winning against a doctor, are just so infinitesimal. And what it will take from you. Now, I did go to court, and I got, trampled, and I had a judge who never met me and heard my voice say that he could tell that I had bipolar disorder from the sound of my voice in Alaska on a video. Right. So judges are doctors too, and it's a kangaroo court. Once you bring in it's spectral evidence. In the Salem witch trials, they'd say, someone make an accusation. Oh, so and so made me have these fits, and then the evidence is invisible, but the accusation is accepted as truth, and that's what's going on with psychiatry.
Right, and really not just the psychiatrists or the doctors, but the social workers.
Absolutely,
have the same immunity. And they are practicing law. Those people who file those
medicine and law.
They are practicing law illegally without a license.
And they're practicing medicine illegally without a license, and so are teachers. A teacher can get a kid drugged.
Right. Right. And it's really tough on parents with kids with special needs because they're really targeted. Because the dollars basically triple in amount.
And can you imagine what that's like for? I'm just thinking of. I've mentioned her before in North Carolina, Sarah Marie Scott. Can you imagine? Is it not enough that you have a child with special needs that are not well understood, but then on top of that, you have to be afraid that the government is going to take your child away and kill your child? by not providing the you. I mean, I hear parents, they'll talk about, oh, they took my child away and they wouldn't let me give this binder to the foster parents. It had 80 pages of everything I've learned about how to take care of my child. Oh no, we can't even. We're not interested.
No, of course not, because they're purposefully trying to break up the family. Because as soon as they have the kid in custody, well, they're not trying to, reconcile, or they'll tell you they are. What they're trying to do is to sever your parental rights so that they can adopt you out and get more money. The cash bonuses after the Bill Clinton measure, I think 1994, which says if you are in foster care and you get adopted out, well, that department gets cash bonuses. So there's no incentive to keep the families away. So rather than, really working with families that might have some problems, no, they want to keep you away as far as possible because they want the child to be detached from the parent so that they can terminate your rights. And then what happens is once you're in this case plan, they present. So they say, okay, you have to go to parenting classes, you have to go to drug rehab, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to do this. Oh, of course, this is all federal dollars, these cottage industries. And then if you don't do it, you're not going to get your kid back. Okay, then the parents, they go nuts. They do everything. They say your appointment is today, but then they last minute. No, they're constantly trying to screw you up. That's what I've seen. And then finally, at the end of the day, they'll go to court and they'll say they're not doing the case plan. Move to sever parental rights. And the way the law is written, if you don't follow the case plan, they can move to sever your parental rights. As the law says
they can do that. They can force you to have a clinical psychological examination. They can make you take drugs, and that be the condition of your child coming home. It's absolutely parents listening to this, grandparents listening to this. Your rights are gone. We have to take them back.
That's right, because nobody is immune.
No one is, and that's why Justina Pelletier. The article I wrote is called "America's Sweetheart" because she represents everything that's going on here. And let's get back to Justina for a moment. This girl is in a wheelchair. This girl is not getting medical care. This girl is not being allowed to practice her religion. She's Catholic. She hasn't. And we've got to get this. We've got to get this girl.
They had her in a locked psych ward for months.
Yeah, and they told the Pelletiers that they were negligent in providing for her emotional and medical needs. Right. Yep.
Right, exactly. I mean, emotional, medical, educational, everything. Parents, mitochondrial disease is a chronic condition. So, it's not easy. They've been dealing with, they dealt with it with their older child who had it. I think the grandmother has it too. It does run in families. The side effects are, debilitating, and it's not easy on any parent because any chronic illness is difficult for the child. That's their youngest child, and they've been doing everything.
And then when you have interfering and making it more difficult, it's just insupportable. It's
just not fair, and I don't.
Well, hang on. Let me ask you a question here. What is the real difference between a mitochondrial disease and this, what some people are considering that somatoform doesn't even really exist? What is the real difference, and how could they have misdiagnosis? I mean, are they similar? Is that how they went from mitochondrial to
somatoform disorder is not a disease or an illness. There is no biological marker, and as far as I that it exists beyond the subjective opinion of a mental health. The fact of the matter is, you're talking about it's just, and as a matter of fact, somatoform disorder is not.
All somatoform disorder is we can't figure out what it is medically, so it must be psychological. That's
exactly right.
Right.
We don't know what's going on, so it must be in your head. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. But you know what? There's also a diagnosis. There could have been a diagnosis of a combination. I was told that by a nurse that they're coming out. They're diagnosing with yes, you have symptoms of mitochondrial disease, but it's coupled with the psychological. So it's just like, you know what? They want to
listen. If you read, Raquel, I'm sure that you've gone probably on Google Scholar and looked at the papers that DeMazo from Boston Children's Hospital has written and Simona Buongiorno. They're talking about their agenda is to get a psychiatrist or is to get psychiatry involved in every single case. That's their agenda.
That's right. I agree. You're right.
Absolutely sick.
Because that's a way for them to steal kids. Because then they could just make up anything. I mean,
yes, and what they're saying, what really kills me, and I have that, I wrote that in my article, is that they're claiming that that if only they would get psychiatry involved in every single case, then they would bring costs down. Well, let's look at Justina's case. Has that brought costs down? They've spent over $2 million.
Well, that's not. That's not coming from the state. That's coming from the federal government. So they don't care. They want that money because they just petitioned the federal government for those funds through HHS.
But the rationale that those studies are based on, and let me say this to Ken. What happened to Justina is that they were recruiting for those studies on beta 5.
Right.
This wasn't really about disagreeing with a diagnosis. They were recruiting. They have NIH grants. That's beta 5 is a research. They came down there. They specialize in somatoform research, and they were looking for someone, and they're always looking for someone. So this is not about honest doctors disagreeing.
Well, I found a website that has all of these, and you would not believe how many, not only somatoform, but I mean anything and everything that you could possibly imagine. They have these studies, and they are recruiting, and they give the ages, and they're looking for adults, but a lot of them
and they're experimenting on children. DeMazo from Boston Children's Hospital has done experiments with Risperdal on young children.
Without consent of the parents,
That's right, because they're wards of the state, and they don't have to get the consent, and that's the whole.
Why were they taken as wards of the state? Because the parents were abusive? Well, we don't know. Because
they need research subjects.
They need research subjects, test subjects, lab rats.
Exactly. Right. So they just flip on that abuse. They flip on that abuse word, which is so kind of nasty, right? So when people hear, "Oh, you're a child abuser,"
So it's just like you're a witch. You're a witch. It's Salem, and you're a witch.
It's Salem, exactly. It is. And those prosecutors, they're just as guilty in civil court, in family court, in dependency courts, because they don't look at the evidence either. It's like a social worker can come in and sign a verification, which can only be signed by a lawyer, but they don't care about that. Sign a verification and say, the cat told me that the kid was being abused, and the prosecutor will say, "Judge, the cat said she is an abuser," and the judge says she is an abuser. That's all they need. That's they do.
Really true.
It's a kangaroo court, like you said. The social worker who so what? Got a master's in something, and all of a sudden the social worker is the boss of the parents. So the social worker comes in and says, I'm going to get a promotion if I pick up 12 kids this week. So, this kid, I don't like her mother. She's just, I don't like the way she looks. I'm going to take this kid. I'm going to tell them that, the cat said the mother was doing drugs. All right, Judge, the cat said. That's how unreal it is.
I love that, Raquel. That's I'm going to use that. It's so true. It's just insane. And can you imagine what these parents are going through? Can people out there even imagine what Lou and Linda Pelletier and their 3 daughters are living through, watching this happen to Justina? And
another thing, it doesn't go away, by the way.
It never goes away, and these parents don't feel that they can talk, and so they're it's not safe to talk even after they get their if by some miracle they get their child back,
right.
they can't talk about it for
absolutely.
fear of repercussions. They're never safe.
They're never safe. Nobody is, and they come right into the schools. The mom and the grandmother that was over my house last week, when everything went down, they had a friend, a relative who worked as a secretary in a public school for many years, and they called her and they're like, hey, did this happen, and what's going on? And she was like, yep, DCF comes in here every day taking kids. They don't call the parents. They don't do anything. They just come and take them. No warrant, no nothing.
Yep.
And could you imagine going to pick up your kid and you're like, where's my kid? Well, DCF picked them up. And
that's right. I've spoken to a dozen people like that in the last 2 weeks through the Justina Pelletier groups.
That's how prevalent it is. It's just disgusting. It's every day. And don't forget that and it's not the foster parent. It's not necessarily the foster parents that are bad, but when they're picking foster parents, well, they hire felons, and they don't check out like the parents. They're awful, but the foster parents are perfect as long as the foster parent goes along. By the way, because I knew of a case that the foster parent figured out that the mother was being railroaded by the state, so she decided to help the mother, even though she was just about to adopt this little girl, by the way. The parental rights has already been severed, and she's about to adopt this little girl, but somehow, somewhere, God brought her and the real mom together, and then she realized the scam. So she started going to court saying, no, this mother is a good mother, and so on. And guess what?
I can imagine.
Well, they dropped her. She wasn't allowed to adopt the baby.
Did she go to jail for that? Was she prosecuted criminally for allowing the mother? Because I remember you talking about that, Raquel. She was the mother was having visits. Was she prosecuted in any way, or she just was not allowed to adopt the child?
I don't think she was prosecuted, but I have to find out. But I also know of another foster parent who was prosecuted, and also because he was a foster parent, he also figured out the scam. He started complaining. They took his kids away, his adopted kids away, and claimed abuse.
Okay, so speaking of prosecution and claims of abuse, let's also talk about this. The governor of Massachusetts comes out and accuses Lou Pelletier of medical neglect, neglecting his child, abuse, without any, what kind of due process is that? What kind of due process is it? If Lou Pelletier was guilty of seriously medically neglecting his child, that's criminal. And under our Constitution, you have a right to face your accuser. You have a right to defend yourself against any evidence that is and for the governor of Massachusetts to come out and say, oh well, we have private secret documents. I really pray that there will be repercussions